these are the 4 steps. Create the file variable, open the file, read or write in the file, and close the file. Now let's see how do you read a file, a text file, line by line. So for that, the first step to read any file is to create the file object or file variable. And to read a file, we always use this type, ifstream. So I have made a variable, ifstream, and the name of the variable is infile. So this is the first step. Always remember, this is the first step of reading a file. Now what we are doing is we are going to the second step, which is opening up the file. So the name of my file, let's suppose it is example.txt, and this is the second step. I'm opening it up. So here the name of your file always go. So whichever file you want to open, you put the name of that file here. Now in the third step, I have again put a while loop. And what this loop is doing, now this time I'm using a different function. I'm not using the get function for characters. So now we are reading the file line by line, not character by character. So we are using a different function, and this function is getline, and you are already familiar with this function. We covered this function in our lecture of strings, right? So remember that time what we did was we wrote, let me write it again for you properly. So that time we wrote this function as this getline. Remember this, we wrote cin and then the name of your variable. So let's say whatever the string was, str, let's say that. So last time we used it like this for user input, but and what this function actually does is it takes input from this variable and saves in this variable. This is the actual purpose of this function. So this time we don't want the input from the user, from the cin. This time we want the input from the file. So you see how we have modified this function. We are using this function, but the parameter is now changed. The argument is now changed. So right now I have written the name of my file variable here. So what it will do is it will take the value from the file and save it in the string variable. So this is very interesting and very good. This is the name of my file variable, and this is the name of my string, which I have defined earlier. Now what will happen is this function gives me one line at a time. So suppose if this is the file, it will read the first line and give it to me in the variable line, and I will see out it here. And in the next iteration of the loop, it will give me the second line, and it will be stored in the variable line, and I will display it here. In the third iteration, it will give me the last line, right? So it will keep on executing. So it will keep on executing and giving me, it will keep on giving me the lines which are here in the file. Now, when it will reach the end of the file and there are no more lines, what will happen? In that case, this function will return 0 or false. So in that case, when this function returns 0 or false, the while loop will be terminated. So it's very easy. And then when it's terminated, then we will go to the fourth step of our code, and which is the fourth step is closing the file, right? Also, you have to include the header file string.h since you are declaring a string here and you are using this function. This function is written in this header file. Now let's see one complete example of reading from the file along with the output and the file itself. So this is step number one. This is step number one where I have created my file variable. This is my step 1. Then this is step 2 where I am opening up the file, and I've named my file as my own name, and it's the same file which we used for the complete example for writing. So it's the same file. Now I have written reading from the file, and I'm using the getline function which we just discussed. So in the getline function, this is the name of my file variable, this is the name of my string. So whatever is written in the file, it will fetch one line from there and save in this variable, and then I will output that variable on screen, and when this loop will be finished, I will close the file. And this loop will only be finished when the file has reached its end. At the end, I have just cout and a file reached. Now let's see, this was the file, you saw that before. Now this is the output of whatever we read. This is the output of this whole code. So you can see this output here.